What is something that is illegal but isn't wrong ethically?
Story 1.
Taking them home and ended up escorting her out with security and put her on probation and just went the full 9 yards over it. She came home traumatized and sobbing. Corporate is the most inhumane system we've ever made, yet it's the one with the most power over us. It's despicable.
Story 2.
Making an adaptation of a piece of media from your grandparents' childhood without a license because the creator died less than 75 years ago. You'll notice that copyright law's extension is closely tied to Disney.
Story 3.
Pirating media that isn't available for purchase in your area. You weren't going to get my money either way. Personally, I feel like any media that is over 30 years old should automatically have a Creative Commons license. At that point, everyone made their money. Just let people enjoy it for free.
Story 4.
Downloading ROMs of old games. We all know you don't own any of those games, but if companies aren't willing to re-release them, then it should be good to download ROMs online. Copyright law really needs an overhaul. If Jaws or the original Star Wars trilogy or other total classic films were only released on Betamax, nobody would blame you for downloading a RIP rather than hunting down a player and paying thousands for an original copy. Movies at least keep their copyright content available. The majority of video game rights don't seem to give a fuck. Shout out to Square Enix though, you can still buy newly pressed copies of Chrono Cross, etc. on their website.
Story 5.
In many municipalities, tiny homes are illegal. It's also not legal in most places to build small neighborhoods anymore. Roads have to be extra wide. No dual resident dwellings can't have more than one front door, etc. Your typical near downtown small, cute, friendly neighborhoods couldn't be built today.
Story 6.
Downloading scientific papers from Sci-Hub. In order to explain science publishing, I always describe it as a system so awful. Their version of the Pirate Bay won industry awards. I always wonder a little about people who like to pipe up with just right to the authors. They're usually happy to shray their work for free, like we're living 40+ years ago. Maybe I'm denying the authors their share of warm fuzzies, but I'm not going to bother writing the authors. I can download the paper and be on to the methodology section before I could even finish phrasing my email. Hi there, long-time listener, first-time caller. Love your work. If you don't mind, could you spare a few minutes to email me a copy? I need it for an argument on Reddit. Thanks in advance.
Story 7.
Downloading college ebooks instead of spending $400 on the latest version, which all they did was change the spelling of a few words and called VT Ben 71245. DT 28164 8446 of the book and require it for your college class, even though they only use a single paragraph from chapter 13, which is a quote from a $5 book they offer in most bookstores, and then fail you from the class if you have V87.145828816483918A45 instead.
Story 8.
Loitering in a park. I've always wondered why this is illegal in some places. The point of a park is to loiter. I've always wondered why this is illegal in some places, because homelessness.
Story 9.
Credentialing laws for things that don't carry much danger if you do them incorrectly, for example, requiring a license to be a florist. And yet, few places require any sort of test to be an automotive mechanic, a field that can very easily maim and kill.
Story 10.
Living off the grid without a permit. I was so into that whole lifestyle until I heard all the troubles people encounter with it. Shitty. Taking food from dumpsters. Linus knows what's up. A feast is a feast. My sister used to work at a Starbucks kiosk in a grocery store. At the end of the day, she was supposed to throw away the pastries that were in single-use plastic wrappers, and she'd write them off as disposed of and such. But she'd take them home because we were struggling financially and was trying to provide a little extra help to her family. It was her first job and was still a teen and naive to the trouble she could get into. One day they accused her of stealing and showed the tapes of her.
Story 11.
Where is that illegal?
Story 12.
withdrawal of care in terminal illness, in some places, unfortunately, love Callie, and it's dying with dignity law. It's given people control over their own lives in these circumstances, and I think that's fair.
Story 13.
Paying to access scientific knowledge in general. Very few fields even pay reviewers, so the money just goes to for-profit companies.
Story 14.
Paying for someone else's parking meter. In my city, long ago, we had a pair of parking fairies who wore wings and tutus and went around feeding expired meters. There are many articles about them, but this one from a parking industry publication was amusingly mean about it all. Parking Today on the parking fairies. In Keene, New Hampshire, there was a group called the Robin Hooders of Keene. They would follow around the meter maid and put quarters in the meters so they couldn't write tickets. Most of the revenue comes from the tickets, not the meters. The city tried to sue, but they were unsuccessful. Some unknown benefactor paid the Robin Hooders to do it. It was part of the libertarian Free State project.
Story 15.
Making photocopies of sheet music. Some people may disagree with me. When I was in high school, I started with an incredible music teacher. Had a master's degree, super smart guy, great at teaching us, but turns out he did porn on the side and got fired mid-semester. When the next year came around and they hired a new teacher, she was actually terrible, only qualified to teach choir, not anything band, and she threw out our entire pep band music folder because she didn't think we were legally allowed to have some of the music in it. Well, thanks to that, we started the season with like 4 songs. It was embarrassing. It literally didn't even matter whether we had the rights or not, because who in the fuck is going to sue a high school for playing a song 20 times a year for no profit? My dad used to work as a choir director. He'd buy sheet music, and technically he'd have to buy as many copies as he'd need for the choir members. That would have been prohibitively expensive, so my job was to scan every page so we could print copies as needed. The publishers we bought from found it suspicious. We only bought 1 copy of books and tried selling us more, but my dad knew there was no way they could actually know we were making copies, so we just ignored them. There was never a problem.
Story 16.
Jaywalking and crossing the street on a red lights as a pedestrian when there are no cars around, taking food from an employer. That was about to get thrown away anyway.
Story 17.
Exposing the crimes of the government. In Australia at the moment, the government is continuing to pursue through the legal system, at great cost, the whistleblower witness Kay and his lawyer Bernard Collery. Both men are accused of revealing information about the government removing resources from anti-terrorism at a time when that was dangerous, and instead diverting those government resources to spy on Timor-Leste, a friend and ally, for the commercial gain of corporations. At the time, Timor-Leste was just emerging from a 24-year genocidal Indonesian operation, was extremely poor, and had very few resources.
We sincerely appreciate you taking the time to watch our YouTube video. If you find our content helpful and enjoyable, please click the subscribe button to stay updated on any new videos we share in the future. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you in our next upcoming videos.